The fifth Radically Rural Summit Conference was held in Keene, New Hampshire on September 21st and 22nd, a gathering that drew several hundred attendees to discuss issues central to small towns and rural areas. The rural-urban divide has drawn much interest in recent years between the economic, political, and cultural issues that often separate rural areas from more populous metropolitan ones, and the summit was an opportunity for attendees to explore building rural sustainability. The Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship and the Keene Sentinel newspaper have hosted the summit since 2018, and the conference offers discussions and presentations across several areas, such as arts and culture, clean energy, community journalism, quality of life, and entrepreneurship. Social events and networking opportunities were also a big part of the two-day conference. The summit kicked off with a keynote address by Chloe Maxman, a state senator from rural Maine, who discussed her approach to running for office in a rural part of the state, which hadn't elected a Democrat in many years, and the importance of listening to opinions across the entire political spectrum.
And I think these forces are intentional and they're manufactured. They're built to divide us. And I think it's really the scariest place that we could be as a society and as a democracy, where we are so divided that we cannot even have conversations. Because the challenges that we're all going to talk about at this conference, they require political solutions. And that requires the people that we elect and the people in our communities to be able to just simply talk with one another in a kind and compassionate way. And I think it can look pretty cool and pretty inspiring when we can bridge those divides. These are some photos that I surreptitiously took of my signs next to Trump's signs. I didn't want people to feel self-conscious for making that choice, but I wanted to memorialize it, so there you go, hopeful. And I think it's truly up to us as folks who have come to this conference. I know that there is space for this kindness to prevail, and I also know that it's not easy. It is much easier said than done. But I think it is the most radical way forward, and I'm just so honored to be here in this space with all of you, and I can't wait to see where we take it. Thank you.
Afterwards, we had a chance to talk further with her.
I think when you look at the data, rural communities have lagged behind in almost every economic measure since 2008. But I think that the disinvestment from rural places, that trend has been going on for decades and decades, back to when folks would leave farms in rural places and move into the cities, and then they would join labor unions and fight for labor rights, and that's really how the Democratic Party got so strong in urban places. There have been so many Democrats who have stayed in rural communities and fought and really worked with folks, but I think the larger themes are that Democrats have really just focused on the cities, and rural folks can really sense that.
Juliana Dodson is the Deputy Executive Director of the Hannah Grimes Center and the Director of the Radically Rural Summit, and she described the overarching purpose of the two-day event.
The main overriding objective is just bringing people together, and if you think of it almost like like we're the chef that's bringing together all these different amazing ingredients and combining them in different ways, and what comes out of that is really up to the folks that are here. And in the past, some things that have come out of it have been amazing community initiatives, relationships, projects. So it's kind of yet to be seen what comes out of it, but we know that bringing people together under common values and collaboration just yields wonderful things for rural communities.
On the afternoon of the first day, we attended one of the sessions on community journalism to hear from 4 journalists, one of them participating remotely from Iowa, about the challenges and opportunities facing small, local community news organizations.
That they do look at their local newspapers, their local journalists differently than they do the media or the national media. So there is more trust in our local outlets, and I think it's important that we continue to hold on to that and build on that trust, and that's where this project really leads to.
People who identified as conservative, who the survey showed, it's up there now, I think, it was a Pew survey that showed very few people who are conservative trusted the news. So really drilling into that and figuring out why they didn't trust us. And like Tony said, people filled out a survey and they agreed to be interviewed by us about their opinions around the news. And by and large, we found that a lot of them did trust us. But we also noticed some, they would say, oh, I mostly trust you. I read you because I want to know about the local news. But they also said things like, when you put certain words in quotation marks in stories, that makes me upset.
Most, if not all of whom were white and middle class, talking about how they're afraid to live in downtown and how they wanted to move out of the city. And we went to a lot of these meetings with community members talking about what are we going to do now. Also in the comments section, we published some comments from readers using words like animals, thugs, lowlifes, project kids. So again, are we just reporting the news? Are we just providing a neutral space for community discussion, or are we actively perpetuating an urban boogeyman narrative in order to make money and be successful as a business?
Afterwards, we spoke with Terrence Williams, the president and chief operating officer of the Keene Sentinel newspaper. What do you see as the future for a small local paper?
Well, I think it's going to be a couple of things. It's going to be, obviously, we're going to have to hold on to whatever ad revenue we can, which is slipping away. But we can rely, I think, more on readers to pay for news and to contribute directly to newsrooms to kind of advance our mission, if you will. We've had some luck with folks not only subscribing but making donations to news coverage. So I think those things give me hope. If readers are willing to go along the journey with us and maybe kick in a few more dollars so that we can keep our newsrooms strong, I think there's reason to be hopeful.
And Radically Rural is more than a summit. It offers year-round programming in the specialty areas like entrepreneurship, arts, quality of rural life, and journalism that was showcased at the summit. Rural Vermont, like the rest of rural America, may face challenges, but there are opportunities emerging too, and not just because of the COVID pandemic and the migration from urban centers that the pandemic prompted. And a younger and more diverse demographic profile is not necessarily limited to cities. That was one of the messages the conference sent. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.